All right, I want to begin this lesson giving all glory and praise to Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai, double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS, Great Millstone, peace, mercy, and grace to the household of faith, the elect, beginning with the 144,000, all right, as well as the rest of the 1/3 men, women, and children of the elect fold. Shalom and welcome back to another lesson. And in this one, I wanted to go into the history of one of our forefathers, Gideon. I went to high school with a Jake named Gideon, and I never knew that name. I never knew that name was biblical, and I was reading some chapters in Judges, and I'm kind of inspired to do lessons dealing with some of the historical figures and historical accounts. So I'm going to begin with this one because it was an interesting story because you had Israelites that were being they're pretty much pissed off the Lord, and the Lord raised up the Midianites to come and invade us and destroy our crops and put us in poverty and bring distress upon us. And what the Lord did was he heard the cries and he raised up a prophet. Nothing new, raised up a prophet. This was a man by the name of Gideon. He had a Hebrew name, of course, which he was, matter of fact, let's read this. Let's just read this and we'll just flow from there. All right. Who was Gideon? Gideon was the 5th judge and renowned as the greatest of Israel. The account of his life is recorded in Judges 6 through chapter 8. The backdrop for Gideon's biography begins with the Israelites being ravaged by the Midianites. And the Midianites were from Abraham. They were through Keturah. We came from his wife Sarah, but he had Keturah, which is who Midian came through. And I want to say these were people in Saudi Arabia. I think the land of Midian was like Saudi Arabia. As a consequence for Israel's disobedience to God, for 7 years they faced invasions from the Midianites, Amalekites, and eastern foreigners who ruined their crops and destroyed their cattle. God's discipline through the foreign nations caused the Israelites to cry out to God for help. So the Most High would send the nations in unto us to attack us, right, for our disobedience, which would then in turn cause us to pretty much humble ourselves and then cry out to him for help. And then he would raise up a savior, if you will, right? So God sends them a prophet to remind them of how the one true God had provided for them in the past and how quickly they had forsaken him. Judges 6:8-10. And that's when the whole, I'm the Lord thy God that brought thee up from the land of Egypt. That's why that's a constant reminder in the scriptures in the Old Testament. The Lord reminding us, hey, I brought you out of the land of Egypt. I'm the only one you're supposed to be serving, because we be forgetting, all right, which is a drawback of being in the flesh. You quickly forget things. That's why you have to always repeat things and write things down. And that's why they say repetition is the father of learning. In this flesh, we tend to forget things, which was all predestined, for this whole story to take place. Because if we never forgot and always remember, we would, if it just happened one time, then it wouldn't have to keep happening, and then the whole story wouldn't have had to play out the way it would have to, play out. So he heard the cries, and he intervenes to deliver his people. Same thing would happen in Egypt, which came later on, before that rather, because came out of Egypt. Then Moses died, Joshua took over, then he died, more leadership. Then ultimately we end up making a king through Saul, and then David on down. So same thing today, sign of crime. The Lord stirred up the One West, Albert Bivens, the elders and the apostles, the elders, etc. Us. He starts by sending the angel of the Lord to Gideon to call him into service. Right? So he sent a messenger. This was an angel that came in the form of a man. Gideon, whose name means cutter or cutter of trees, belonged to an undistinguished family of the Abba Ezrites, and he saw himself as unfit for God's service. Right, because he said that he came from the least of the least. He was a Manassite. We believe the Manassites today are the Cubans. He said, I'm of the least of the least, not knowing that, the Lord deals with, let's get 1 Samuel 16:7. It says, let's start at 6. 1 Samuel 16:7. So it came to pass when they were come that he looked on Eliab and said, surely Yahweh's anointed is before him. But Yahweh said unto Samuel, look not on his countenance or unto the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For Yahweh seeth not as man seeth, for man looketh on the outward appearance, but Yahweh looketh on the heart. All right, so Gideon being in the the mind of the flesh, the man, like on the surface, I'm a nobody. I'm from a tribe that ain't got nothing. Why choose me? And that's a part of the Lord's, how he worked through men. He chooses the most insignificant amongst men to get glory. And he's also going to stress that in Judges, the 8th chapter, which I want to go ahead and go there. Or Judges 7, rather. Because when it came to selecting those men, what did the Lord say? He said, it's too many. I think it was 20,000 at first. So this is Judges 7:1. Then Jerubbaal, who was Gideon, and all the people that were with him rose up early and pitched beside the well of Harod, so that the host of the Midianites were on the north side of them by the hill of Moreh in the valley. And the Lord said unto Gideon, the people that are with thee are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel vaunt themselves against me, saying, my own hand have saved me. See? So the Lord wanted to decrease the numbers so that we wouldn't get proud and think that we beat them on our own. It would have had to be like, damn, this was a miracle from the Almighty. You're like, how the hell did we do this with 300 people? How do we beat these many people with 300? All right, so going back. So let's look at some of the highlights right here. So the angel appeared to Gideon and told him that, hey, the Lord sent me. The Lord is finna raise you up to deliver your people, the Israelites. And the angel gave him a sign. He said, if you with me, give me a sign. The Lord gave him a sign. Let's read the sign. It says, but Gideon needed. It says, during this conversation with the angel, it becomes apparent to Gideon that he is speaking to the Lord himself. But Gideon needed proof positive that it was, in fact, God calling him to the divine task of leading a military force against Midian. Gideon asked the angel of the Lord to stay where he was while Gideon went to prepare a meal. Gideon returned with some food, which he sat on a rock. Then God gave a sign. The angel of the Lord touched the meat and the unleavened bread with the tip of the staff that was in his hand. Fire flared from the rock, consuming the meat, the bread, and the angel of the Lord disappeared. How about that? All right. So Gideon built an altar afterwards, called it Yashalom, the Lord is peace, because he's seen him and he didn't die. So the same night, that was a sign number 1. The same night, Gideon destroyed the altar of Baal, because the Lord told him to go get rid of that bullshit that his dad was worshiping. He destroyed the altar of Baal and the Asherah pole that belonged to his father. All right, then he got a new name. They called him Jerubbaal, let Baal contend. And I think that was another account of a sign. Yep. So after the troops had been mustered, Gideon grew nervous. He asked God for another sign to confirm his calling. He put out a piece of wool overnight and asked God to make it wet while keeping the surrounding dirt dry. God graciously did as Gideon asked. Then Gideon asked for yet another sign. This sign he asked God to keep the fleece dry while making the surrounding dirt wet. So the opposite. And again, God complied, and Gideon was finally convinced that God meant what he said, and that under Gideon's leadership. So this can apply to us, because I know myself, when I first got called into this, I started having doubts. I'm like, is this real? Like, is this really the truth? And I started getting signs. It started making sense. And certain things just kept happening in my life, and I was able to reflect on other things that were happening, and it just all made sense. Because we would want something, straightforward, some type of straight proof, like, and I make a joke, but we would want the clouds to crack, and, we would want that, but that just ain't how the Lord deal. The Lord deal with signs, tokens. He deal through people, through situations, circumstances. All right, let's get Job 33 and 14. It says, "For God speaketh once, yea twice, yet man perceiveth it not." So sometimes, the Almighty Yahweh Shem Shai is speaking to us in our life, not right face to face or in our ear, but he's speaking again through people, through circumstances, through things happening, and we ain't perceiving it. You see? So sometimes you have to go to sleep, receive a dream. Sometimes it's different ways the Lord to confirm things to you. So once Gideon got that confirmation, he was like, okay, let's do it. Couldn't deny it. So it says, but God was not done increasing Gideon's faith. Right. And Gideon is mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11, which is a chapter about the faith of our forefathers. So here it is. Yahweh is working on Gideon's faith. Yahweh Shem Shai is working on his faith. It says, so this is when he brought the numbers down from 32,000 to 300. All right, God's purpose was to prevent Israel from boasting that their own strength had saved them. So Gideon overheard a couple mention a dream that night. They was talking about what it says, discussing a dream that took to pretend disaster for them. That night God sent Gideon into the midst of the Midianite camp. So he was amongst the ops. He overheard them talking about a dream that something happened to them. And when he heard that, he perceived that was more confirmation. So that encouraged him, and they attacked. All right. So after the victory, the people wanted to make Gideon their king, their first king, but he demurred, saying, "I will not rule over you, nor will my son rule over you. Yahweh Shem shall rule over you," which was the right thing, because that's how it was supposed to be anyway. Like, we weren't supposed to have a king, because really that's what the heathen were doing. Because in Judges chapter 7 or 8, it might be 8, it tell you how the Ephraimites, they ended up getting the chiefs of the Midianites, and then they ended up getting the kings. Is it king or the kings? And then they killed them. But the point is that they were kings. This is it right here. Judges 8 and 5. "And he said unto the men of Succoth, Give, I pray you, loaves of bread unto the people that follow me, for they be faint, and I am pursuing after Zebah and Zalmunna, kings of Midian." So they had two kings. And then if you read the previous chapter, I think it was the chiefs that the Ephraimites had done got. They took the princes. So the Ephraimites gathered themselves together and took the waters unto Beth Barah and Jordan, Judges 7:25. And they took two princes of the Midianites, Oreb and Zeb. So they go, that hierarchy. They had the princes, the kings. And, at that time we didn't have that. So here go Jake wanting to be like the heathen. They say, "Hey, let's make you king." That wasn't our custom at that point. We didn't have a king, a physical king. Our king was was the Most High. And so, Gideon said, the Lord gonna rule over you. And it lasted, it says the peace lasted for a generation, right? There was peace for 40 years. And then it says Gideon requested of the troops contribute gold from the plunder of the battle so he could create an ephod, which he set up in his hometown. Whatever Gideon's intent in fashioning the ephod, the people began to use it for idolatrous purposes, and it became a snare to Gideon and his family. Yep. So they started back going into the idolatry. Just like when Moses was up for 40 days or 40 nights, when he came down, they had them took the gold that they had and they made an idol out of it. They made a calf out of it. So this is Judges 8:33, and it came to pass as soon as Gideon was dead that the children of Israel turned again and went a-whoring after Balaam and made Baal-bereth their god. So it's just like when Jake be going through shit like Katrina, when going through legal issues, facing life in prison or something, and going through something, they get all humble, they get lowly, they start talking about, yeah, man, by the grace of God, man. Next thing you know, they want to start talking God talk, and then as soon as the smoke clear and everything go back to normal, they back to the streets, back to back to things as they were. Let's get Sirach 11. Sirach. Oh, I was in the chapter. Just had to go down a little bit more. Okay, so this is Sirach, otherwise known as Ecclesiasticus chapter 11, verse 25. In the days of prosperity, there is a forgetfulness of affliction. And in the day of affliction, there is no more remembrance of prosperity. See? So, yeah, when you up, you ain't thinking about them lonely nights, them cold nights when you had to, heat up the ravioli, the SpaghettiOs, the bologna sandwiches, PB&J. Then when you down, you next thing you know, you humble, you lowly. You ain't thinking about all them times you was up because you focused on the moment. So our people just forgot, hey man, the Lord brought us out of the hand of the Midianites. He brought us out of Egypt. He got us in this holy land. He fulfilled his promise to our forefather Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. He didn't forget about us. And the children of Israel, this is verse 34, and the children of Israel remembered not the Lord their God, who had delivered them out the hands of all their enemies on every side, because the affliction was no more. Now they was back in the time of prosperity, so they forgot about the affliction. Verse 35, neither showed they kindness to the house of Jerubbaal, namely Gideon, according to all the goodness which he had showed unto Israel. So I'm going to get this Hebrews 11, where it mentions him briefly, and that'll be it. All right, the triumphs of faith. Hebrews 11 and 30. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. By faith, the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. What more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon, and of Barak, and of Samson, and of Jephthah, and of David also, and Samuel, and of the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fires, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. All right, so I'm going to close that. I pray it was an edifying lesson. On to the next one. Shalom.